All right. So, gosh, how many more Thursdays do we have together this year? Not many. I feel like we have one, two, three, four more Thursdays this year, and then we're done with our Thursday power ups for the rest of the year because we have Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays coming up. So, not a ton of year left. But the good news is we have 3 weeks left before we can really just start nailing things for 2023, which means that these 3 weeks we could still get closings on the board for December. It's entirely possible. So all of you guys that did mass action day yesterday, that was really cool. I'm glad that you did it and glad that you tapped into such a great tool to just push yourself and stretch and just get the work done, right? So let's start with gratitude this morning. Who's got gratitude that they want to share or some wins that they want to share? Give you a second to think about what's going on in your life, what's going on in your team's life, your colleagues' life, all of that good stuff. And probably looking for 3 to 5 people to share. And if you're not one of those people, I'll just randomly choose you. And gosh, that'll be fun this morning. It'll really spice things up. I see those smiles. So I'll give you guys a second to think about it. And then I'll go to non-thinkers about it. Jordan, good morning, sir.
Hey, how's it going?
Going well. And
yeah,
congratulations on all of your Instagram stuff. Really have been loving it.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate that. That's Allie pushing me to post more. So yeah. Thank you for doing these calls every week because I can't imagine it's easy to wrangle us in. So I appreciate you for that. And then I have a lot of gratitude for Jen Smith on our team. If y'all don't know her, she's just a wonderful human being. And I had a situation yesterday where I was like, man, I really need a second opinion on how to approach this because I'm not approaching it the most effective way. And so I just shot her a text and said, hey, whenever you have a few minutes, I'd love some coaching. And within like 5 or 10 minutes, she called me back and we chatted for like 45 minutes. But I always take away so much from those conversations. And I just want to show my appreciation for her. So thank you.
I love that. Jen is such a good human. Jen, you've been with us for so long and we're so appreciative of you and everything that you contribute to our company and just not just on your team, but I know that your phone's always open for everybody, which I think is really cool. Love that. Who else this morning? Ooh, okay. I'm going to start choosing. All right. Rob Lenza.
I'll go Adelina.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go to Rob Lenza and then I'm going to go to Sarissa. Rob Lenza, you look like you had something to say this morning. I haven't talked to you in a long time. So
I know, I miss you.
I know. I miss you.
Yeah. So I am just grateful for the team. Very grateful for my family specifically. We had a really good weekend this past weekend, and I'm really glad that we did our business planning and we got the opportunities coming up, putting those into practice over the next couple of weeks. So very grateful for that.
Right on. I love that. Great job, San Antonio team. Sarissa, yes, ma'am.
Sorry, while driving, I couldn't find the hand raise. So, I was just like, oh, I'm mute. Yeah, I was just and I missed you yesterday, Adelina, but reminder, like how important our admin team is. And so I just have a huge shout out for like all of you guys that don't get the glitz and the glam. A lot of times salespeople make more than our admin team. And yet, like, they're the ones, guys, that like make the world go round. And so I would just encourage people to like write them a thank you note, take them to lunch, like give them the love that they deserve, because this is not meant to be weird. But like, if a salesperson leaves, yes, we're sad, but like the ship keeps going. Like when an admin person is sick or whatever, we all feel it. So just a huge gratitude for our virtual assistants, our TCs, our like all the boots on the ground. Very thankful for all of you guys.
That is so absolutely true. Yes, if one of our support staff or operations staff is sick, we all feel it, right? Or anything, if any life change happens, So man, so much gratitude to you guys, because you guys do make everything go round. I want to give a couple shout outs. I'm going to give a shout out to Nikki in Houston. Nikki just got a buyer rep signed in the last week from Circle Prospecting, and I thought that was really awesome. And I want to give a shout out to Memo in Austin. He pended a seller, and that seller came from a sign call. And so always here to remind you, pick up that phone. You have no idea who's on the other side. So I loved seeing like 2 really great deals that came together in the last week, just from a couple different things that are just part of our business plan to begin with. So I thought that was really, really neat.
Hey, Adelina, can I add on to that?
Absolutely.
So on Nikki's buyer rep, that particular buyer has expressed to her that they want to buy 5 properties by the end of the year. So that's not an ordinary buyer rep. That's a good one.
That'll be very helpful. It is pretty awesome. I love that. Wow, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Jaime. Thanks for lifting up Nikki even more. And thanks for creating such a cool environment over there that everybody wants to do it. I see the Houston team always on mojo and mojoing away, and you guys are an inspiration. Thank you so much for doing that. Speaking of inspiration, I want to introduce you guys to somebody who inspires me. And some of you, maybe like 20%, were probably around when we had Jeannette Spinelli speak maybe 4 years ago. Gosh, it was a long time ago, Jeannette. I don't even remember what year this was. Maybe 2019? I don't know. 2018.
We're getting old.
I know. I don't even want to think about it. But Jeannette spoke to us a few years ago, and it's been a long time since we've heard from Jeannette. And she inspires me because, you know, there's always the one-hit wonders, right? You all know them, right? You see them like for a blink of a second, maybe a year, and they do so well, and you want to be like them. But then they're kind of gone a year later or 2 years later, right? Or like the consistency never showed up. So what you saw was the intensity at play. And not that intensity is bad, it's certainly good in many situations, but consistency is what gets you to like have a sustainable business. And Jeannette is someone who has had a sustainable business over, in her words, over a very long time. So this morning, I'm gonna put the spotlight on Miss Jeannette, and I want you guys to probably take out a pen and paper. This is someone that I think just really is a shining star of what we would want our business to look like. And I know right now, if you look at her business in today's like filter, you're like, oh, glitz and glamour and amazing. And yes, all of that, right? And why shouldn't it be, right? After so many years of work, right? And at the same time, it didn't start out that way. So I wanted you all to get to know Jeannette, how she started her business, how she overcame personal challenges. And oh, by the way, she has had market shifts like we're going through today. And then what will it take for 2023 for us to succeed? And I'm just going to let Jeannette talk, and I'll interject if there's anything that I see in the chat box. But Jeannette, we are so pleased to have you this morning. And also, I love your lipstick color. Great way to start this morning. Very energizing. For everyone who doesn't know Jeannette, she is in the Austin area. She has an incredible team here, Spinelli Residential Group, and they just kick butt, and we're just so happy to be aligned with them at Place.
Well, thank you. That's very generous of you. The admiration goes both ways, as you know. But I tell you, I think it's always funny when I get asked some of these questions about in the beginning, you know, what was it like? Because the great news is that it's the same for everyone. We all start off, I think, with the same opportunities, and some of us start off in situations that you know, we're not even able to bring our best at the beginning of our career. Sometimes we're coming from situations or challenges, and I think we can all share in that it's not always easy. But I think if I was really lucky that maybe it's a blessing and a curse to have a little bit more of a dreamer mentality than rational thinking. So when I started in this business, I was not the sole earner. And so this was really looked at to me like I was one of those horrible, dreaded part-time realtors that we talk about sometimes, but that's how I started, and it wasn't real serious for me. I had a lot of other exciting things going on in my life, and I was kind of thrown overnight into a situation where I was the sole breadwinner and $140,000 in debt, literally in 2 or 3 days. And I know some of you know that story, so I won't belabor it too long, but I had a fiance that was killed in a car accident a month before our wedding. And I had purchased the home, he had gutted it. And on the day he died, his sweat equity of completing the home was not possible, of course. He had passed away, but I was left with this house I couldn't afford to carry on my own, and I had to finish it, and I was depressed and grieving. And it started off a couple of years of just one thing after another happening that were pretty serious. Couple deaths in the family, couple family situations, and I think everyone you have your story. Like none of us come out of this unscathed, and so as an adult, I think we all carry something. In my situation, I had all that to deal with, and I really didn't have like role models or mentors or cheerleaders. I mean, my family was a very strict Italian background, and I was raised to just get married and have babies. And no one ever asked me growing up, what do you want to be when or you can be anything. I never heard those words. And I don't say that to disparage my family, that was their mindset. That's how they were raised. We didn't come from a family of entrepreneurs or successful people. They were good people, and I had that as a role model, but I didn't have perhaps work ethic or entrepreneur mindset, or even having a good mindset. It was just not discussed. So I was in that situation, and I did the math, and my average price point at that time was $99,000. This was 25 years ago, so it's not as bad as it sounds, but it wasn't high. It wasn't even what the city average was, I don't think. And I did the math, and I thought, okay, I'm going to be like 100 before I get out of debt. And I had a kiddo going to college in 2 years, so I had a lot of pressure, and I also had the illness of not asking for help. So I did not want any of my family to know the gravity of the situation. So I just had to do, the only thing that I could do is I had to get down to work. And there was a lot of self-doubt. When I looked around the room of agents that were doing really well, I wasn't anything like them. And so that was a real struggle every day to tell myself that I could, even though I didn't belong to the country club, or I didn't have a wealthy family or husband, or hadn't grown up in Westlake Hills, that I could still figure out how I was going to do it. And I had to really figure out what my superpower was, and have a burning belief that if I worked hard, I could make something better. So that part did actually come naturally to me, the willingness to give up something good to go for something great. I had good skills at seeing the big picture and knowing each step. That did come naturally. I wasn't on a team. I didn't have coaches. I couldn't afford any of that kind of stuff. All I knew is that I was a really hard worker, and that's how I just had to outwork everybody around me. And that's what I did relentlessly for 4 years. I didn't take one weekend off. I didn't go to do anything fun for 4 years. That was the commitment I made, and that hard work really, really paid off. I was willing to do things other people weren't willing to do. I was willing to do 4 or 5 open houses on weekends. I did weekday open houses when nobody else was doing them. Everybody thought I was a weirdo. I just had to squeeze out every opportunity because I was a single mom, and I had my daughter Taylin, who works for me. Some of you may know her. I had her every other weekend, her when she would go visit her father, and I had to squeeze everything into that time. So I was just very purposeful before we even talked about things like that. It was the only way. So that from all of that work, I did what everyone does new. I knocked on doors. My daughter can remember putting hangers on doorknobs at apartment buildings, and I called. And one of the biggest calls that I made was he was a developer trying to sell his own development, and it was right around 9/11 when nothing was selling. And I called him and I got that listing. It just goes to show you, when you don't know what you don't know, sometimes you can be really dangerous, but in a good way. I was dangerous in a sense that I wasn't afraid. And I went out after this business that the top agents in Westlake were trying to get. But I didn't know that, so it didn't intimidate me. I just saw that it was a development, that nothing was happening with it. And I found the phone number and I called. And the short version of that story is, to date, that has resulted from that development, people who originally bought those lots, people who sold their homes to build their new homes here, all the resales, all the referrals, over $7 million of GCI to date has come from that cold call. So you never kind of really know, right, what's going to happen and what's going to get you to those levels. It can take several years to be a high achiever in any field. But to me, that doesn't mean that you're at the top of, any of the lists that come out at the end of the year. I know in Austin, there's an elite 25 group, and I always see on people's goal sheets, they want to be an elite 25. And I'm telling you, that is not the measure of true success. What we do here at Place and with our business partners on creating a sustainable business, that's way more important than knowing how to go out and sell. You will learn how to sell just by doing. Most people won't even do that much, but in addition to that, you got to learn how to run your business. And that is where I see as the ultimate achievement. This past couple of years, everybody's been successful, but now you're going to start to really see, who's going to step up and who's going to be able to make the most of the market that we're in right now. And the fact is, most people just won't sign up for the work.
Oh my gosh, I love that. The last thing you just said, step up and make the most of the market. Like, think about that mindset. Like, there's a million mindsets out there. And then this is like Jeanette's mindset, step up and make the most out of this market. That's really powerful. I'm curious, Jeannette, like, just in hearing your story, most people will do open houses for 3 months, 6 months, a year, and then they kind of graduate from it. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, or maybe they'll cold call for 3 months during launch, or 6 months, or a year, and then we graduate from it, kind of. So, like, ultimately, why did you do it for 4 years? Because that's what I call consistency. Why did you do it and why don't others do it? Or like, what feedback do you want to give us on that perspective of running like those lead gen levers, or any lead gen lever, truly consistently?
Well, I think that's what worked for me. If door knocking had worked better, I would have done that for 4 years. So we think you have to, listen, I believe that breakthroughs happen at the slowest of times. And that's why it's so important not to let off the gas, like right now. And so one of the things that has to happen first is you got to get honest and real about what you can do. There's so much out of our control right now, right? So I think you've got to get really focused on what you can control. And what I heard this somewhere, so I don't want to take credit. I just can't remember where I heard it, but also you got to get good at figuring out your zone of genius. And that zone of genius is really, defined by what is your passion, what keeps you going, what are you really good at? It's kind of this intersection, and only you can figure that out. You've got to be true to yourself to say, I'm going to listen to leadership. I'm going to listen to the people who've done this before. Even those of us that have been, or those of you that have been in real estate for 10 years, this still applies to you, because this market is different than you've experienced. But for those of us who were around at 9/11 in 2008, 2009, and 2010, it's similar, but it's still not the same. And so you've got to really stop and figure out, where are you and where you're going to be most effective so that you can be relentless there. For me, it was, I could do open houses. I had a good gift of, a gift of gab, and I could take 3 or 4 points about that neighborhood, about a competitive listing in that neighborhood, about something that just sold, anything. And I could weave that into a conversation that was easy for me. So that is where I decided to just, kill it. And I think that that's going to, this market requires that type of first introspection, so that you can come to this zone of genius, this intersection of passions, talents, skills, and values. I think in values, because it's going to be very interesting to see how some people react to the way the market is and what happens. And this is the time where you might be tested. And I think for most of us, there's just 2 times in our lives when we're truly tested. One is when everything in your life is in flow. Things are going your way. Life is grand. Everything is going right. Still, how do you show up? Who are you during those times? Are you still humble? How do you treat other people? Do you let your ego take you over, or do you keep your feet on the ground? So that's a test. The past 2 years have been a test for a lot of people. Then the other time that you're tested is when nothing is going your way. It's 2 extremes. When nothing is going well. Same thing. Who do you show up as? How do you respond to the environment? How do you treat other people? I was put in a spot where I was tested, but you don't have to go through something like a death to be tested. The test is right now. And you've got to get very clear with yourself. Who do you want to be? What are you going to do? Because again, in the breakthroughs are in the slowest times, the times of pain. And you've got to be damn good at not letting your mind getting in your way, so that you can operate from a place that will sustain you when you're getting kicked in the teeth that day. You might get kicked in the teeth 10 times that day, but you got to be the master of your mind, because when you're able to do that, you can stay in that zone. You don't get pulled into some dark place. And I think you also have to be great. You got to get this down right now of what really matters to you. What matters to you more than money? And you got to figure out why that is. The reason that is important is because that becomes your shield, and it protects you against everything that is unimportant, so that you can stay in that zone. But only you, it's not a column in a spreadsheet. It's not in anybody's auto plan. Only you, Matt and Jan and Jamie, only you guys can figure out. That's what I call kind of pillow talk. You might need to talk to your partner. What is it that's really important going into this next year, which is going to be a challenge? You're in a little bit of a race against your own enthusiasm. Because right now you're still enthusiastic, right? You may have had a couple of bad months lately, but you still have a little bit of the wind of the last couple of years behind you. But it's a race against that, because that will start to die off. You got to protect your mind. You got to take ownership, take responsibility, and be able to course correct. And the only way you can course correct is to have first awareness, to have enlightenment, to have a plan. And it's not just the speed to, we talk about speed to lead, but it's speed in which to react to a current situation. I think there's a, oh my gosh, I hate when I want to quote someone and I can't think of who said it, because I don't want to take credit. So I'm borrowing this. They said the difference between being successful and unsuccessful is not the absence of obstacles or challenges, but the presence of perseverance. And I think brave and creative business owners are going to be born out of what happens in this next year. And that's a very good thing.
Oh my God, I love that. And the reason I love that so much is because it's absolutely true. So ultimately, going back to, 9/11, going back to the crash of 08, 9, 10, I know Austin, in some ways we're like, oh, we're protected, but man, I don't know, everybody, have you guys seen like the layoffs recently, right? Like all of our cities are being hit with different things. So during that time where enthusiasm does wane, did your enthusiasm wane, and like what kept you going during that time?
I think that I don't recall, this was a long time ago, mind you, I don't recall my enthusiasm waning.
Okay.
I had a really strong work ethic.
Okay.
I know, and whoever's not in Austin might not know some of these names, but Adelina, like the cord shiftlets, let's just say, of the world, we were just happy to do leases. I mean, there was nothing beneath us. And I always say, I have a lot to learn in leadership and being a manager. That does not come naturally to me. My pep talk is more like a Ben style pep talk. Just shut your trap and get your A out there and do it, and come back to me when you have a real problem. Because a real problem is that I don't have any business. Look around you. There are houses in every direction. There are people living in those houses, and they will still have life come up and where we're going to have to do something. Sell, move, get a bigger house, get a smaller house. Opportunity is everywhere. So just stop whining and make it happen. That's my management style. And that is not a great management style. People don't really react to that. I mean, a lot of people get very turned off by that. I'm a little rough. And I know that, but that, when you're asking the question, that's what got me through, because I talk to myself the same way. I don't say or do to anyone anything that I wouldn't say or do to myself. So that motivates me. And that's all I know, right? So that's what I mean by I've got a lot to learn about leadership and management, because, that's my opportunity to get better, is to get better at that aspect of my role right now. But as an agent, I didn't need anybody to motivate me. I had an internal motivation. I think part of that driven out of desperation. I had, as I said, a child and $140,000 in debt, and I had no one that was going to rescue me. It was not an option not to go out and bring back business.
How long did it take you to pay off that 140,000? Do you remember?
Oh, I remember very clearly. It took me 3 years, 2 months, and a few days.
Okay. And do you remember how long you were in that, we can call it desperation phase? Like, it's do or die. Like every day is do or die. You got to do it. Like that consistency has to show up. Otherwise, like your family that counts on you is not going to be real happy. How long did that last?
I feel in a sense it's never gone away.
Okay.
I still wake up. I think some people know that I transitioned into being in Nantucket for a couple months out of the year. That's where I am right now. I left the 1st of September. And so it's different, the past few months have been different. But prior to that, I woke up every day feeling the pressure that I had to make something happen. Not desperation, but it switched to, I got to make something happen for my team. I got to make something happen for this particular agent. It is a little bit of an internal, I don't know how you teach that. I just think if you don't have that, if each one of you know who's good at that and who isn't. You may not even be honest with your coach, about that, but you really should be, because there's no shame in that. I think now is the time to get real with yourself about what it is that you're going to need the next year to be able to be successful, whatever that is. I don't think it's only about GCI, but it starts with you getting that extreme, clarity. And even an experienced agent, I find, does it. I talk to a lot of agents, not within place, agents outside of place, who say, what have you done with your business? How your things have changed for you. I want to know how to do that. Well, first off, they're not willing to do the work is the first thing. Second thing, they're not with place. And I firmly, with every ounce of me, believe that this is the only group that's going to support that sustainable business model, that entrepreneur that has that, leading with that, and the layer of values and integrity. I believe this is the only place. So, everyone, even the most experienced person, is questioning right now what is happening and what they need. And I'm telling you, you got to get crystal clear on that, because that, we talk about this, that why, again, not a financial why, but whatever that why is, that's what's going to keep you going when things aren't going well. So new people, experienced people, I think when I say experienced, I mean, a couple of years in the business. I think the situation for anyone that's been licensed for less than 3 years is even more critical, because I think they've got this false sense of how good they are. And you're probably not that good. I mean, the market made a lot of people. I can say that because I look at myself and I think I'm not that good at leadership. I'm not that good at coaching and training. I've got to level that up. But I think you've got to be true to yourself and figure it out. And for those of you that have been successful, I think, everybody should have their day in the sun where they feel successful, where they feel accomplished. But if you're not careful, you stay in that spot too long. If you have a dog, sometimes like they find the sun coming in through the window, and you'll see them find that little sliver of sun and they lay there, and that's where that saying comes from. But I think if you're not careful, you stay in that one spot too long. That spot becomes part of your ego, and it becomes something about being recognized or getting accolades. And to me, that's the worst goal that you can have, because it stifles growth. It promotes comfort. There are many, many spots in the sun. And when you let your ego and these kind of external lists and things take over, you don't push yourself to really stink at something that you can grow. And you don't get to experience other things, and you don't get to be present for other opportunities. And that's where the real growth is. That's what life is all about. So if you're listening to this and this is resonating, gosh, maybe I have been too comfortable. Just think about the next thing that you're going to do after this ends to challenge yourself. I think it's going to be more important than ever. And I think it's also going to be more predictable. I think we're going to be able to look at people in our lives and know who's not going to get through this based on their attitude and their actions.
I love that. What are you telling your team for 2023? Like, what is your coaching, or what's your perspective on how the market's going to do, and how we need to change either our attitude or our actions, or both, to be able to really make the most of it? Like you said, step up and make the most of this market.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think from a practical standpoint, in a declining or an uncertain market, every lead, every interaction, every sales call is more critical than ever. You can't waste the opportunity. And I think today you have to ask yourself, do I have the solid processes? Honestly, do I have the solid processes to grow? If you're in leadership, to manage the team, you have to be willing to deconstruct and rebuild, because what you did before may not work. And I think that's going to require a bit of slowing down and re-examining what it is that you are doing. As I mentioned before, kind of the second thing I would say is, as I mentioned before, is your mindset. Losing is a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's why it's so important to stay positive and enthusiastic and not let doom and gloom affect your approach. The minute you start thinking that way, you've lost. But the really, really good news is the inverse is true as well. Winning is a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I'd say the third thing is, well, probably have two more things. The third thing is you got to be a student again, and you got to ramp up quickly. Like I said, it's not speed to lead, but speed to competency. And you can bang out 1 million calls, but it's who you're calling, what you're saying. Your competency must be elevated, and you have to increase the quality and the frequency of those interactions between your agents and their customers and the public, because the public is watching too. You know, you can't run around last year and say, oh my gosh, I'm so busy, I can't even handle all my business. And then this year you say, oh, it's so slow. I mean, you know, you've got to have some, you have to have a better approach to that when you're talking to people in the public. They're watching you. And you have to have a good dialogue to say, there are opportunities in every market. I've been doing this business long enough, even if you've only done it for 2 years, right? You have us to bank off of. I've been doing this business long enough to know that this is just an opportunity dressed differently. In every market, there's opportunities. And instead of standing in line with 45 people, beating every buyer, beating each other up, giving away the moon and the stars and the sun and repairs and appraisal waivers and all of that, you just couldn't wait to abuse yourself. And now that the market is opened up, now you're afraid. Like, what kind of nonsense is that? You have to be smart enough and have the confidence of what you're saying to be able to approach your clients like that and get them off the fence. And when business is tight, that's the last thing I would share with my team and with you all. Customer service goes farther than ever, 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 ever. It's those who are willing to bend over backwards to solve a problem in a caring way. That's what's going to win deals at the expense of the less helpful competitors. So you're in a competition with these other agents, but you're first in a competition for yourself. So think about what you're doing. Think about what you say when you wake up. Think about how you've planned your day. Look at your calendars. Squeeze more in. I do this little thing sometimes when I'm coaching my team, and I share the sharing page with them, and I have them pull their calendar up. It's kind of like a pop quiz. I like the awful pop quiz teacher that you had in high school. And I'm like, what is this 3 hours here and this 1 hour here, or 30 minutes? What are you doing in this 15 minutes? Because it took me 1.5 minutes to cold call Lee Weber. And that resulted in $7 million of gross commissions. 1.5 minutes. That's a great return.
I love that. One word that you used a couple times, I don't know if you noticed, but you used the word relentless a lot, Jeannette. What does relentless with activities look like in the new year? Well, right now, honestly, right? Because everything we're doing right now, it's Q1, it's Q2. But what does relentless look like in activities? If you were starting over, what would that have to look like for you?
Well, first I would say I got that from Chris Suarez. I do know. You'll find I don't really say anything someone else hasn't already said. I just read a lot and I listen to a lot of podcasts and things. But relentless to me, if I were in this market right now, I would be up at 5 a.m. taking care of myself, because you need it. You need the energy, you need the health, and in quieting my mind. And by 6:30 or 7, I would be at my computer taking care of all the distractions that creep up in your day. And I'd have a structured mindset that I'm not going to be looking back at my email until later on in the day, because from 8 until 3, I either need to be talking to someone, showing something, or writing something. That's my job. And there's kind of no excuse. If you've got lower your price point because you think those deals might be easier, or move to a different area because you see volume happening. Don't sit there and do nothing. Life is all about course correction. And you know, when we talk about sellers right now, they're in the 7 stages of grief. I think that comes out of the Shift book.
Yeah.
Agents are in the 7 stages of grief. Get your ass to acceptance as soon as you can, people, because it's not changing. Get it together. Stop whining, stop complaining, stop wringing your hands, pick up the phone, call everyone that already likes you and loves you, and ask them for help, for ideas, and be prepared. Like I said earlier, you know, be a student. If you're not good with investments, or you don't know anything about secondary markets, you need to start learning, because your client base may not need another primary home, but they may need a house for their kid in college. Refer those out. That's a great ROI. You know, the outgoing referrals are a great ROI. Squeezing 2 or 3 more deals out of each person is absolutely possible, but you've got to be knowledgeable before you pick up the phone. If I hear, you know, and I know this is a script for everyone, but hi, this is so and so. Do you know anyone that wants to buy and sell? I mean, nobody wants to hear that. Nobody. And so why are you important in their lives? What are you willing to do for them? Are you willing to do the work to earn the seat at the table alongside their accountant and their financial advisor and their estate planner, so you can be part of those conversations and be able to pull a piece of that money out for someone's financial future and be able to turn that into a future for them, which you know you can. We have such a responsibility and an honor to be involved in people's lives and dealing with their money. Their money. For some people, that's the most important thing in their lives, and they're entrusting you with that money. What are you doing today to get better at what you do so that you can be more helpful to them? I mean, those things are just non-negotiables, and all of that needs to happen before 8 a.m. And then the rest of the day, you know, look at your meetings. Do you really need to go to all those meetings? Can your 30-minute meetings be 15-minute meetings? You got to find more time. Cutting, you know, everybody's cutting budgets right now. It's not just about money. I can take a red marker and write through every single one of your budgets. That's easy. That's easy. What are you going to do to get more with less? That's the question. That's the hard part. So same thing with you may not be writing checks, you know, on a team, you know, Rob or Vera or Becky or Helen, I don't know each individual situation, but Donnie or Jordan may not be writing a check, but every minute of your workday is an asset. It's a value. And if you're on a team, you should be very responsible for how you're spending that asset.
God, I love that. I love, I don't know if you guys were prepared for Jeannette this morning. Jeannette comes off real sweet, and she is. And can you guys tell that she has been successful for a lot more than just her sweetness, right? She is relentless, even before she was probably using that word, right? So I know I saw a couple of private messages come through. 5 a.m. was you wake up and you take care of yourself, right? 6:30 to 7, right around that time, that's when you're taking care of those distractions. And by 8, so from 8 to 3, like if you're not talking to new clients, new leads, new relationships, if you're not showing property or going on appointments or writing offers, like there's no excuse for that, right? Like every minute is an asset, right? You're doing more with less, but it's not because you're like, well, my day ends at 11 o'clock. Congratulations. I'm now a real estate agent. My schedule is so flexible. You will die in the next market or in the market we're in. We're not shifting, we have shifted. So I love that. Your time is an asset. Like if you got nothing out of it today, other than your time is an asset, Guys, that's so true. 1000%. I love that. And get to acceptance on the 7 stages of grief. The faster you get to acceptance, you get to course correct. And one other thing that I pulled out that you said, Jeannette, was all of that, like, get better time, like when am I going to get better? That's all done before 8 o'clock, right? And Ben says that a lot. He would say that his time to get better was after 8 p.m. at night, right? And it wasn't during the work day, because the work day was for work, right? But how effective you are is dependent on your speed to competency. And I love that. I love that. All right. Are you guys good? You guys feel good? We're going to go kill it now. And we're going to go make the most out of the next few weeks to get deals going for December. I know a lot of you do need those paychecks. Your family needs those paychecks. And then all the work that you're doing right now that doesn't turn into a December paycheck, it means that it is Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 work. And that is totally awesome as well. Jeannette, you are amazing. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Everyone, we will see you next Thursday, and have a good rest of your week. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.